Archaeologists have uncovered honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that's still perfectly edible thousands of years later. It's a biological anomaly. Most foods rot, but this golden liquid can essentially last forever if you just keep it in an airtight container. This stability isn't an accident. It's the result of specific enzymes the bees infuse into the substance. The starting material is just watery nectar, a perishable flower secretion. We're going to explore the biological machinery that transforms this fragile liquid into the only food known to contain all the ingredients needed to sustain life. Beyond being a pantry staple, it's a medical tool used for cuts, burns, and sore throats. How does a tiny insect take a drop of water and turn it into immortality? Let's step into a field of wildflowers. This is where the process begins. Honey originates from plants, specifically starting as a sugary liquid called nectar hidden deep within the bloom. While the primary source is floral, bees are versatile. They can also harvest sugary secretions from other insects, like the honeydew produced by aphids. When a bee lands, she collects two distinct resources, nectar for energy and pollen for protein. As she moves from bloom to bloom, she inadvertently sprinkles pollen on each, a process we call pollination. This simple act makes bees perhaps the most critical insects on Earth. By enabling flowers to produce seeds, pollination allows plants to survive and propagate. Humans rely on this system for everything, from the apples in our orchards to the blueberries in our bowls. It's a symbiotic relationship where both the bee and the flower are locked in a struggle for survival. In this dance, the bee becomes a high-precision biological machine. To grasp the scale of this operation, we have to look at the colony. Honeybees live in massive, organized societies where a single beehive can house around 50,000 individuals. It's a world of extreme specialization. The colony consists of a queen, worker bees, and drones. The queen is the heart of the hive, but the workers are the engine. These workers are all females, and they're the ones venturing into the wilderness. To navigate the landscape and pinpoint hidden nectar reserves, they use a specialized sensory kit, 5 eyes to see the world and 6 legs to grip the petals. Meanwhile, the male drones have roles that are strictly limited. When a worker bee leaves the hive, she isn't just taking a short flight, she's starting a grueling commute. To fill her honey stomach, she must visit thousands of flowers, a task that requires absolute precision and a level of buzzing energy that would exhaust any other creature. Just imagine the sheer volume of flight required just to bring back one small load of nectar. Watch closely as the worker bee begins her harvest. She uses a long, specially adapted tongue, a tool called a proboscis, to slurp nectar from the deepest parts of the flower. At this point, we can finally kill the bee vomit myth. To understand why, we have to look at the bee's internal anatomy. Bees actually possess 2 entirely separate stomachs. One is for her own digestion, and the other is a dedicated honey stomach, also known as a crop or honey sac. This crop is not a digestive organ, it's a distension of the esophagus, serving as a specialized storage tank. Because this crop is physically separated from the digestive tract, the nectar never enters the stomach where it would be broken down by acids. Instead, the honey stomach acts as a biological suitcase. Once the crop is full, the bee returns to the nest, carrying a precious, watery cargo that remains untouched by her own digestive system. Everything is now set for the transformation. Inside that specialized crop, something remarkable unfolds. The bee's body is not merely a storage tank, it's a miniature, high-tech chemical factory. As the forager flies home, the honey stomach becomes a reaction chamber where the transformation from watery secretion to sweet gold begins. This process is driven by the rhythmic addition of enzymes that mix with the nectar during the flight. The first critical player is an enzyme called invertase. Nectar is primarily a solution of sucrose, a complex sugar that bacteria love to feast upon. Invertase acts like molecular scissors, cleaving the sucrose molecule into two simpler, more stable sugars, glucose and fructose. Next, a second enzyme, glucose oxidase, enters the fray. This is where the chemistry of preservation truly kicks in. It converts some of the glucose into gluconic acid, which lowers the pH, making the environment inhospitable for bacteria, and hydrogen peroxide, a potent antimicrobial agent. Finally, diastase joins the mix, breaking down any residual starches into simple glucose. Through this invisible, rapid reaction, the nectar is fundamentally altered before it even touches the hive. It is a biological feat of chemistry, engineering a substance designed to defy time. Now we reach the stage that some find unsettling. Imagine a chain of bees passing nectar like a bucket brigade of sugar. To concentrate the liquid, a forager bee regurgitates the nectar from her honey stomach into the mouth of another bee. This is not the act of digesting sugar, but a precise handoff. This regurgitation telephone is a social relay where the nectar is passed between multiple house bees. As the nectar moves from one bee to the next, the house bees contribute their own enzymes to further break down moisture. With every single handoff, the liquid becomes less watery and more viscous. They're effectively refining the substance, stripping away excess water before it ever reaches the honeycomb cells. It's a biological assembly line where the nectar is passed back and forth to concentrate the sugars, turning a simple floral secretion into a dense golden syrup. Once the nectar is processed, the bees store it in the honeycomb. This isn't just a storage unit, it's a highly engineered architecture of hexagonal wax cells. But there is a remaining problem. The nectar is still too watery. If it stays in this state, it would ferment and spoil. Therefore, the bees must act as biological dehumidifiers. They beat their wings with incredible speed, fanning the nectar in the cells to force the water to evaporate. This constant air current creates a massive evaporation process that concentrates the sugars, making the honey thick and heavy. Once the water content is reduced to roughly 17 to 20%, roughly the moisture level of a dried apricot, the bees seal the cell shut with a thin layer of beeswax. This act of capping is the final step. By sealing the honeycomb, they lock the honey in a sterile environment, turning a perishable liquid into a stable, eternal food source. What makes this liquid gold truly immortal? It comes down to a strange chemical mirror image. Honey is composed of AD-glucose and BD-fructose, two sugar molecules that act as mirror images of one another. This unique structural pairing creates intense osmotic pressure. Think of it as a biological vacuum that literally sucks the water out of any bacteria that attempts to land in the honey. The microbes simply shrivel up and die. To keep this chemical factory running perfectly, beehives are maintained at a constant temperature of 35 degrees Celsius. This precise thermal control, combined with the extreme sugar concentration, turns the honey into a place where bacteria cannot survive. It is not just a sweet treat. It is a biologically engineered fortress of preservation. Stop for a moment and think about a single teaspoon of honey. It is not just a sticky syrup. It is the cumulative lifetime effort of approximately 12 bees. When you stir that golden spoonful into your morning tea, you are consuming the exhausted work of a dozen lives. It's humbling to realize that a single drop of gold is the biological output of insects that spent their entire existence foraging, flying, and refining. The weight of that one teaspoon is, in a biological sense, staggering. But how do those foragers actually find thousands of specific flowers across a vast landscape? The answer lies in a sophisticated system of body language. Bees perform a waggle dance to communicate. Depending on the distance of the food source, the bees use different movements. If the flowers are close, they perform a circle dance. However, if the target is far away, the movement becomes a complex figure eight. They use the angle and duration of the waggle to pinpoint the exact location and distance relative to the sun, essentially mapping the world for their sisters. This leaves us wondering, how does a tiny brain process such complex geometric data? Looking back, the journey from a watery floral secretion to a biological masterpiece is a feat of absolute precision. It begins with a forager visiting over 1,000 flowers per trip and ends with the critical 20% water threshold, where the honey becomes too thick for any microbe to survive. This stability is reinforced by glucose oxidase, which produces the hydrogen peroxide that keeps the honey sterile. This entire process is driven by a massive social engine, overseen by a single queen who can produce over 2,500 eggs a day to ensure the colony's survival. When humans enter this world, beekeepers use a smoker to trick the bees into eating honey and making them calm and docile. From the microscopic enzyme to the vast network of worker bees, honey is not just food. It is a highly engineered product of cooperation, a golden record of 1,000 flowers, and a testament to the power of biological synergy.